Welcome to the Mind Vine podcast, where we challenge the stigma associated with mental illness through conversations about a variety of issues impacting mental health. Here we bring you news, views, and interviews that intrigue, educate, and celebrate recovery. Leading us on this journey are the hosts of the Mind Vine podcast, Daryl Mathers and Chris Bovey.
Welcome to the Mind Vine podcast. My name is Daryl Mathers, and I'm without my co-host today, Chris Bovey, as we continue the Protecting Minds series, looking at the participants of our fall campaign in partnership between Ontario Shores Centre for Mental Health Sciences and the Ontario Shores Foundation, as we look to raise funds and awareness for mental health programs. One of the great things about this year's program is we're meeting a lot of different people, participants from across Ontario, some connected to Ontario Shores, some not. All have great experiences, or I should say, inspiring stories with mental health. Obviously, not some of them not great experiences generally, but they're in recovery. They've gone through the other side. They're inspired to share their story, and that's true with our guest, Desmond. Desmond, really nice to meet you or see you virtually. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me.
So you are in Port Hope, I believe. Is that correct?
Yep. I am.
So that is an area that Ontario Shores provides service, but not necessarily a pillar of the community. Why, or how did you get connected first to the campaign? Why join Ontario Shores in this effort for advocacy?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't have any personal involvement with Ontario Shores, but I do follow them on a couple of different social medias, and I saw a call for volunteers for this year's advertising campaign. I think it was on LinkedIn. So I just clicked and thought, part of my story with mental health is being a little bit of a mental health advocate. And advocacy to reduce stigma around mental health is something that's very important to me. And I felt like I was at a place in my journey with mental health to be a part of something like this and share my story and hopefully help people connect, advocate for mental health awareness and try and reduce some stigma, not just around mental illness, but growing up in the Durham region, some of the stigma around Ontario Shores as well, right?
Yeah, there's definitely, we've been around for 100 years, and we feel like the tide is finally turning a little bit, that people understand a little bit about what we're doing, in our location at Whitby and in our offices throughout parts of the region. But we still have a long way to go. You touched on stigma, and as we were going through your story, in preparation for the campaign, and you're working with a writer to develop the content, it was pretty clear that you were the stigma, in a sense, in the other ways. People looked at you and thought, what problems could this guy have? Tell us a little bit about, growing up and discovering kind of your connection to mental health.
Sure. Yeah. I like to share my story because I always preface it by saying, I'm not a person that really had to fight for a whole lot in life. Life's been pretty good to me. But having said that, I've had quite a few mental health struggles of my own that you may not know just from looking at me or from talking to me. So I guess, I grew up playing sports, that old adage, boys don't cry, that sort of thing. Learning, not really learning, but just kind of thinking that you need to sort of hide your emotions and bottle those up and not share how you're feeling, or if something feels quote unquote normal or not normal, I guess. You're just kind of keeping that to yourself so that your people's perception of you isn't something that you don't want it to be. So it took me a long time to kind of recognize things that I was dealing with, and primarily anxiety. And it's kind of funny you mention it because this past week I was actually camping, trying to get a little bit of an escape from work and the daily grind and get out into nature and enjoy that, and be the manly man and make a fire and put up a tent and that sort of thing. And getting there, getting out of the car, getting ready to set up, start to feel my anxiety again. And I started to kind of think about what that feeling was and why I was feeling it. And the truth is, I don't really know why I was feeling it. There was nothing really wrong. I was on vacation. I was in a nice place. Everything was going smoothly. And the way that it made me feel was almost like I needed to be protected, or someone to like sort of take care of me and get me through it. And I was like, that's such a weird feeling, because I'm a fairly independent person. I can take care of myself. And it's a familiar situation, nothing new. I don't need someone to kind of show me what to do and those sorts of things. So it kind of reiterated to me why I wanted to be involved in something like this, to really help people understand that it can happen to anybody. You can experience these things no matter sort of what you're going through in life. And B, it can kind of hit you at any time. And it was important for me to recognize it. And I was lucky enough to be there with my partner and sort of talk to her about what I was feeling and why I thought I was feeling that way. And just by being open and honest about how I was feeling, and then taking a bit of time to just maybe go off by myself and go for a little walk, and stop thinking about things for a little bit, really kind of helped me settle down. And after about a half hour, 45 minutes or so, got back to feeling like business as usual, right? So that's a big part of why I wanted to be involved in the campaign. It was a nice little reminder just before coming on to talk to you that unfortunately I had to kind of experience that again, but talking to you now, I feel great. And part of that is just that recognition of I was experiencing something. It's okay to experience those things, and it's even better to talk about what you're experiencing so that others recognize it, but also can maybe help you through it.
It's similar to people who have diabetes. They have to monitor their blood sugar and why are they feeling a certain way, and analyzing it from that perspective. And mental health is about learning yourself, I guess, right? And learning how to you react to certain situations and what you can do. How has that journey been for you in terms of like understanding yourself and getting to the point where you can feel something coming on, you can ask yourself the right questions, you can make the right calls to help yourself? What's that experience been like?
It was challenging. As a teenager, I think back, and there's probably times when I was experiencing anxiety for sure, and just didn't really recognize what that was, and thought it was weird and hated the feeling, but no way I was going to tell anybody what I was feeling. And it took me a while, and honestly, it took me to a point. I was in my early 20s where it got so debilitating, like it got so bad that I was having physical symptoms, right? So I had very bad stomach pains to the point where it was nearly impossible to kind of get up and walk around and move normally. Weird little physical tics like teeth chattering when it was like 32 degrees in my basement apartment. We got to a point where I was away at school and I had to call home and get picked up by my parents and come home and go to the doctors and, talk about the physical symptoms a bit, then started talking about some of the mental things I was feeling, and recognized that it was the anxiety that was causing some of these physical things in me, because your body's reacting to something unusual, right? So it was a way for your body to sort of defend itself. And it took me a while to really recognize that. But now I can recognize that my stomach's feeling a bit off, or my teeth start to chatter. I get a little bit of tightness in my chest, and I'm going, okay, you're feeling anxiety. So what helps you with that? And different days, it's different things. Maybe it's just going off by myself for a walk or a run, or a little bit of a workout just to kind of clear my head, or sometimes it lasts a little bit longer, and I need to vocalize kind of how I'm feeling to the people around me. And I'm lucky enough to have people around me that know what I need in those moments and can be very supportive, very upbeat and positive, or let's give Des a little bit of space here so that he can kind of deal with things himself and get myself to a point where I feel better, and can function. And but what's interesting is it took such a long time to be able to recognize those signs, and figure out what I can do to help myself feel better, but also learning that it's okay to talk about it and to let the people around you know what you're feeling, so that if you seem a bit off, I try not to get defensive about it. I just try to explain, this is what I'm feeling right now. I'm sorry if I seem a bit off, or I'm not enjoying myself in the situation, or whatever that might be, so that the people around me can understand what I'm feeling and why I'm acting a certain way. And I'm not looking to them for help or anything, but just for a bit of understanding that I'm going through something right now, and could use your support, and that support may just be not judging me for the way I'm feeling, right?
It's interesting. You talk about your friends and family. You mentioned your partner, like kind of helping you through that experience you were having when you were about to go camping. For people that, unfortunately, not everybody that has a mental health issue has people around them to support them, but it sounds like you do. It's a real education experience for them as well, right? Like, and not only getting to understand mental illness, but understand you individually.
Yeah, it is. It's a learning experience for the people around me. But what was kind of interesting and maybe a bit unique about my journey with mental illness was I decided when I finally got that diagnosis, it kind of felt like a validation. And I took that and sort of ran, I don't know, I guess you could call it like a social media campaign. So I would do this bi-weekly blog, just talk about how I'm feeling and those sorts of things. And what was really kind of humbling and unique about that experience was you always kind of feel like you're alone. And then I share my story, and I'm getting people from different times in my life reaching out, and even people that I don't really know, but are friends of friends that have seen what I was posting or something like that, reach out and kind of share their story and let me know what they feel and those sorts of things. And that was, it was a very humbling experience. And, at the start, I kind of felt like, well, what's so special about what I'm feeling, right? Like there's lots of people in the world that have it way worse than I do. But it was kind of nice to have that community and have people reach out to share similar stories to me, so that A, I don't feel alone, but B, I also feel like I'm not throwing myself a pity party or something like that. It's something that I'm experiencing, and lots of other people are experiencing it too. And it doesn't really matter to what degree you're experiencing it. It's important that you're talking about it and able to get any sort of help and support that you need, which is kind of a cool part about being part of this campaign and supporting a place like Ontario Shores is you're right. A lot of people don't have that support system that I'm incredibly lucky to have. But a place like Ontario Shores can help provide those types of support systems for people that aren't fortunate enough to have one like I do.
On the subject of the campaign, which is set to launch in October, run for a few months this fall. You have your blog, you have your relationships, you've shared your story with people before. You're going to see it on a bit of a larger scale as the campaign rolls along. Are you concerned at all that more and more people are going to see your story, or that you're going to have to talk about it more? Or is there any fears associated with really being out there in terms of what you've experienced?
That's a really good question, because believe it or not, I'm kind of an introverted person. So there's always that general sort of anxiety of your story's out there in the public and that sort of thing. But I think I'm fortunate that I've been very open with my story to people that I know and people that I don't know, and spoken in a couple of different forums about it. So I don't have concerns. I think I'm kind of excited and hope people can see it and recognize that it was a bit of a journey for me to go through these things. Like there was a point when I was going through some of my mental health challenges where I didn't really like who I was, to be honest, and would do things that that I wasn't proud of. And part of my mental health journey was sort of helping get myself to become the person that I want to be, and am proud to be, and, can look in the mirror and be like, yeah, I like that guy. So I hope part of this campaign, people can recognize that I went through a bit of a journey, and, they can kind of connect that to hopefully themselves or someone that they know, to recognize that, sometimes there's some challenges that we go through in life, and you get to a point where maybe you're not the proudest of yourself, but, by surrounding yourself with resources that can help you, having a little bit of self-awareness and being willing to be a little bit uncomfortable in those experiences and learning about yourself, but really putting the work in, you can get yourself to a point where 90% of my days are really good days now, and I'm quite proud of who I am, and this is part of that journey, and something that I'm really excited and proud to be a part of.
Tell us a little bit about where you're at now. I know you've had, like a lot of people who experience mental health issues, you've had to take some detours in terms of education and your career, and obviously relationships. About where are you now, and where do you hope to go in the future?
Sure, yeah. So probably the biggest hiccup I had was when I was really seriously dealing with my anxiety and some of those physical symptoms that we talked about earlier. I was actually in teachers college, looking to teach, because I went to school and I got that Bachelor of Arts degree, and that was sort of the path that I felt destined for. And I got so sick that I had to go home, like we talked about, and got to a point where it was kind of balancing my options, decided it was probably best at that point to sort of cut my losses with teachers college. And that gave me sort of a gap year, right? So I decided to spend that year, one, trying to find work with a Bachelor of Arts, which can be challenging sometimes, but also two, focusing on getting myself healthy. And so that took some time to figure out, where am I going to go next career-wise? And I think everyone at that point, when in your early 20s, kind of has that experience where you thought you were on the path to be one thing, but you get to a point and you're really not sure what you're going to do with the rest of your life. And there's still some days where I think, what am I doing with my life? But it got to a point where I found, a postgraduate program that in human resources, and that sort of aligned with my background a little bit. And then, part of what led me there too was being open and talking about my mental illness and those sorts of things, and wanting to help people in the workplace come to work and enjoy the environment they're in. Because that's something that used to give me anxiety, with some of the different work environments that I had experienced in my past. And if I had the sort of support systems that some employers are putting into place nowadays, I certainly would have felt better, and would have leveraged some of those resources, like employee assistance programs and those sorts of things, where you have access to counseling or different types of resources to help you deal with these types of things. So that was part of it. And then ended up kind of going through school and building that confidence back in myself, and getting myself healthy, and being able to kind of be around friends and family that I was familiar with was certainly very beneficial there. Ended up getting work out of my program, and through that I've been able to share my mental health story while also doing my sort of day-to-day job, and helping just kind of share what my story is. Again, really focusing on that it can really happen to anybody, and it's okay. And really kind of trying to challenge and push men to be a bit more open with their feelings, and not be afraid to talk about some of the emotions that they're feeling, or anything that feels a bit off. Try not to bottle those things up, but make sure that we're talking about those things. And some of that involvement too, I have done through the Movember campaign every year. So that's sort of a forum that I used to have a little bit of fun and grow a funny mustache, because it looks a bit weird, but also, get people talking, because I get enough questions about it, and it's a conversation starter for me to say, well, it's part of it's for my mental health journey. So right now I'm at a point where most of my days are great days. Once in a while I'll get a little bit of a trigger. COVID certainly made it a bit interesting. So I think what really was a challenge there was sort of the suddenness of all of a sudden we're in lockdown. What's work going to look like? What's day-to-day life going to look like? And some of the challenges around that. The weather getting better and nicer was good, so we could get outside and enjoy that. But being holed up in the house was a little bit of a challenge, but did a couple things, got myself eating healthier, got myself working out, and enjoying the things that I enjoy in life in a safe way. Sort of really helped to make most of my days really good days. And now looking to the future, I'm excited to be a part of a campaign like this. And I'm really starting to seriously think about mental health advocacy as something that I want to have more involvement in, and try and help more people or more organizations like Ontario Shores get the support that they need. And yeah, I hope that most of my days keep being good ones, but recognize that it's okay to have some bad ones once in a while, and leverage the resources around me that I'm lucky enough to have to get through those tougher days.
Well, we're thankful that you emailed us in response to the campaign, and it's been great to get to know you, and thank you for sharing your story today and through the campaign. And we'll be doing lots of work in the future, so we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, no worries. Thank you. Appreciate it.